The presenters today are Mason Miller and Wendy Lunding. Mr. Miller is a source water protection specialist with the Drinking Inventory and Protection Team and the Drinking Water Special Functions sections. He has a BS in Agriculture Economics, resources from Texas A&M University. Mason has worked for TCEQ since 1999 as an environmental investigator, source water protection specialist, and surface water treatment plant optimization. His duties include source water protection, Texas Optimization Program, PDW Conference Director, and GPS Coordinator for TCEQ. Ms. Lunding has more than 20 years of experience in multiple engineering areas, including water, wastewater, civil planning, and oil and gas in both the public and private sectors. She has worked in a range of projects, including water treatment plants, aquifer storage and recovery, LCRR inventory planning, stormwater and source water protection, and large diameter water lines in Texas, municipal wastewater programs, both in Louisiana and Texas. Master planning for oil and gas operations in West Africa, as well as the management of technical interfaces on a multi-billion-dollar deepwater gas development in Southeast Asia. Wendy is a senior project manager with CDM Smith in Houston, where she has been there for the past 7 years. Please welcome Mason Miller and Wendy Lunding.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I'm glad to see all of you here today. Thank you for coming in here. We're going to give a little quick overview of the source water protection and best management project, at least I am, and then I'm going to turn it over to our contractor with CDM Smith, Wendy Lunding. So I'll go through my part first, and we'll talk about the program just a little bit. I'm going to give you the history of it. So we started doing source water protection in 1986, and then we used to just do wellhead protection is what we called it, and then we expanded it in 96 to source water protection and wellhead protection. I said that wrong the first time. We started in 86, and then in 96 we started doing wells and intakes. And so since we started doing that, we've worked with right at 980 wellhead protection and source water protection projects here in Texas. And we have approximately 4,700 community water systems in Texas, and we serve populations from anywhere from 50 to more than 2.7 million. And then this program is implemented by myself, TCEQ, and then we have several other partners that we're going to go through during this presentation. Here's a map of the project areas that we've worked with since the inception. And as you can see, there's a lot of job security there. If we've worked with almost 1,000 water systems, and we've got 4,700 community water systems. So there's a lot of water systems out there that definitely could benefit from participating in the source water protection program. So we're going to go through how to participate and some of the benefits of being a part of the program. The green dots represent the FY23 project areas that we're working with. We're doing some down in the Harris County area. And a big project that we're working with this year is we've been working in Comal County, and we're actually doing the source water protection inventory for Canyon Lake, and also for the city of Blanco. We're doing the Blanco River there. So we've got a good project area that we're working with this year, and next year hopefully we can recruit some of you in here to participate as well. The Safe Drinking Water Act of '96 amendments required water systems to identify their surface areas where the water's coming from, and then inventory the potential sources of contamination that are on the land surface that could be detrimental to the water quality, and then implement a source water protection plan. So there are 4 major components to the plan, and the first thing is begging and pleading with someone to participate. That's step number 1. You call them up, and you try to sell the program, okay? And I've gotten to where I'm not too bad of a salesman. I try to A lot of times when TCEQ calls, people are a little skeptical. They don't realize, okay, that we do have programs that are set there to help and assist. And so the program introduction and research, that's where we get you to join the program, and then we do research on the protection area that you're looking at. How many wells do you have? What area on the land surface are we trying to do an inventory for? So that's where we design the source water protection area, and we'll cover those a little bit more as we go through. But the inventory is one of the most important things. That's where we actually go out and ground truth the source water protection area, looking for potential sources of contamination. And then once that's done, we put together a project report that has a contingency plan and also includes best management practices. So some of the PSOC examples that we see as we go through the areas, and there's some of the major ones that we find are like confined animal feeding operations, cemeteries, dumps, such as the top right there with the battery, and then you have underground storage tanks and chemical storage. But some of the major ones that we try to identify are the abandoned water wells. In this particular photo in the center there, you'll see on the right there's a cement block with a hole there, and you see the brick. On the left is the bucket that sits above that. And so we found a lot of this where these water wells have been left abandoned, and it's a direct straw for the contaminants on the Earth's surface to run straight into your drinking water. So when we do a source water protection inventory, we spend a lot of effort trying to find those abandoned wells and operational wells too, because eventually, if not taken care of, an operational well becomes an abandoned well. So for each PSOC that we identify, we try to implement a best management practice to go along with that. Prevention is the first most effective pollution control, and implementation helps with the source water and protection public health. So once we identify the PSOC, we try to map some sort of a BMP to it. In this particular case here, I use some agricultural examples where you've got some milo and corn, which are crop labeled for different chemicals for pre-emergence. When those chemicals during a rain event run off of the field, we've got grassed waterways, we've got field border strips, wattles, and sometimes it's just a matter of education. And so on those bottom three, those are what we call educational BMPs, where the storm drain is labeled, the manhole is labeled, or even going out to your lake where you may have a pipeline running over the top of your lake or a pipeline running through your source water protection area, then you need to have that information in your BMP report so that if there is a problem, you have that information where you can call that company immediately and let them know there's a problem. But you've got your field border strips and you've got your terraces, and then there at the bottom you have your manhole that's labeled, and also you have your labeling for your storm drains, and those are all part of educational BMPs. Something that we created a couple of years ago is the source water protection brochure. Basically what this is for, we've got this where you can get some of those and hand out at your water office, and we also have it available on our website on swaptexas.org where you can download a printable version. And if you have a group of high schoolers or even elementary or junior high students come to your water system for a tour, you can print these out yourselves and hand them out and try to educate from the ground up. And we found that if you can try to get, a lot of times if you can get the high school kids or even the younger elementary kids, they'll go home and talk to their parents. And I've had kids tell me, yeah, my dad, he just dumps that oil in that well behind our house. That's where he gets rid of it. And so like, well, hang on here, let's work on that a little bit. But that's a brochure. Like I said, it is available in the TA room. We have lots of those, and you can download them as well from our website. The next is public awareness. When we complete the project, we provide drinking water protection area signs to put up on your well, or in this particular case here, they're a Superior water system, and so they put this up on their Superior sign leading into their city. And this is really a good public outreach tool because it opens up the conversation. People start asking the water operators, hey, what are we dealing with? What are we talking about? And it's just being mindful that your activities within this area are a sensitive deal. Then the contingency plan, the TCEQ provides templates and emergency contacts, alternate water source information, and media guides so that all of that's at the fingertips of the operator in case there's an issue. And we put this together in a 3-ring binder so that, you know, if we do a source water protection report and give it to you and the operator puts that on the bookshelf and never looks at it again, that's not going to protect your drinking water. So we've made this a 3-ring binder to where you're supposed to look at this continuously. It's supposed to be a living document. And as houses come and go, as businesses enter into your area, update your source water protection plan so that you know, okay, these are the sensitive areas, and this is the area, this is where these are the types of potential sources of contamination that we have in that area. The conclusion from my portion is we want all public water systems to have a plan, and we'll make them easy to implement and maintain. We want to assist water systems in maintaining the program, and we want to work together to provide the best possible water to customers. Assist the public in better understanding the source of their water, which is through this brochure, and we have a web version that you can also put on your website. So if you're a city or a WSC and you have a website, then you can put this on your website and you can make a note of it on your water bill. Try to get people to go and read it. And so that's helping understand that. And we want to support the implementation of the best management practices. So the source water protection water security contract that I mentioned is CDM Smith Incorporated. That's the TCEQ prime contractor. And they have some subcontractors, EJA and Associates subcontractor. That's Elston Johnson sitting here in the front. RJN subcontractors. Do we have any RJN folks here today? Okay. And then also H2O Partners. Okay. So that's the subcontractors with the source water protection contract. Some of the things that we did under that contract, and I see Lady DeLeon sitting here, we did the water security training, the art of generator maintenance workshops this year, and that involved county emergency management coordination, and then the third-party electrical provider coordination. That was another part of the field trip, and then the generator field demonstration. Also, source water protection partnerships. Jewel Usquiano, she works for Texas Rural Water Association, and she also provides source water protection assistance where she'll come and do your source water protection project for you. And Jewel helps us out a whole lot by going to a water system that already has a plan in place, but they've added a well, and they want to update that particular well source water protection plan. Jewel can come in there and do a new protection plan and update your plan to include everything that you may have now. We have water systems that participated right away back in '96, and they've got 3 wells that aren't even in existence anymore, and they've got a source water protection plan for those 3 wells. So that we come in here, they've got 5 new wells, we'll implement that for you as well. Her rules that she follows is be a public water system, have at least 1 well or intake, be willing to develop a steering committee, and that can be your employees. If you're a Texas Parks and Wildlife, it can be all of your park rangers, something that small. Be willing to implement at least 1 best management practice. 1 best management practice would be hanging the drinking water protection area signs on the well house. Be willing to carry out public education, and what she does a lot of times is she'll go to a career day or a field event that they might have in your city and have a booth there and hand out information. So it's really pretty simple. Jewel's information is available right there. Jewel Usquiano, if you want to take a picture of that one, or you can email myself or Wendy afterwards too. Ours are listed here. Real quickly on the source water protection partnerships, the Texas Forest Service, we've been implementing source water protection for forests and drinking water, and we're basically working on the relationship between forested watersheds and water resources. And studies have shown that where you have forested land that's unabated and left alone, the source water running from that is cleaner. It actually filters out the contaminants from the drinking water. So very important part that we're working on there. This is an active program. We had a large meeting in Nacogdoches this September to get our stakeholders together. We're trying to get the logging industry and the landowners to work together to sustainably harvest and try to keep as much of our natural resources together in the forests area, but yet not take somebody's livelihood away, just do it in a sustainable method. And that's the information for that if you need a picture for that one. Hughes Simpson. The next source water protection partnership we have is the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And we've been implementing source water protection for state parks. We've been doing this now for 4 years. We've done 4 parks. We've completed plans for Guadalupe River State Park. That was the first one we did. I actually met the park ranger here at this conference some years ago. Russell Miller was the first park ranger to step up. Raise your hand there, Russell. There you go. Russell was the first park ranger, said, hey, I'd like to do this. And if you go to Guadalupe River State Park now, there's a sign hanging out front saying, hey, drinking water protection area. And they actively protect their water there. The other ones that we've done are Choke Canyon, and that's on Lake Corpus Christi, and in Pedernales Falls, which is near Johnson City. And the one we did last December is near Junction, is South Llano River State Park. It's a secret park, so y'all didn't hear me say that. Nobody knows about it. It's very wonderful. And yesterday, we had a group of rangers come forward, and we took our group picture because we're getting serious. We've been putting newsletter articles in Texas Rural Water Association's magazine. I've been writing them in the TCQ newsletter, and our goal is to someday to be in that Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine. So that's what we're working towards. But we're going to have our 5th installment this year. We're going to do a park. We haven't decided yet. But you can tell there's a group of people right there pretty excited about being part of source water protection. And even though there's only a few people that live at those parks every day, we care about those few people as well. And it's really for all the travelers and the park goers. So that's a big project. TCQ, Texas Rural Water Association, and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Program, which is celebrating 100 years this year. The last thing on mine is the FMT and Managerial Assistance Program, and that's free training on water system issues that you may be having. Visit that booth in the technical assistance room if you have an opportunity. Now I'm going to turn it over to Wendy Lundeen.
Thank you. I feel a bit like Vanna White holding up all the brochures and signs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through what to expect if you decide or choose to participate in the Source Water Protection Program. But the first thing that I wanted to do, so I'm going to walk through, each of the 5 different steps that we typically go through when we're assessing a system. But before that, I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to our participants this year. Aqua Systems, which I believe is headquartered here in Austin, volunteered for us to do 11 of their systems near Harris County, just north of Houston. City of Manville down in Brazoria County also participated. They were also one of the recipients of the Superior PWS Awards this year, so very excited to be part of the program, which was great. And then, of course, as Mason mentioned, we did several systems around the Canyon Lake and Blanco River area. He mentioned earlier that we held a series of generator workshops, the art of generator maintenance. So those were conducted around the state, Waco, Beaumont, Lubbock, and El Paso. These sessions have also been recorded. The one in Waco was recorded. So if you go to the TCEQ website, scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that TCEQ has a YouTube channel. This recording, as well as the other ones that we have done at the conference, will also eventually be uploaded there. But in that website, you want to go ahead and select the playlist section. And right now, the generator maintenance workshop is the first set of playlists that shows up. However, if it gets bumped down, you can always search for the word generator, and that will pull that up. There are the 5 different videos that we recorded for each of the different sessions. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. If you decide to come out and join the program, what you can expect to have happen. So step 1, once you agree, there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes before we even come out and start talking to you. So once you and Mason have come to an agreement to be part of the program, our team gets together and starts looking at desktop data. So TCEQ will send their information over. We'll start processing it. They send us, what they have as far as what your wells are, what other wells are potentially in the area, as well as some potential sources of contamination that they have. In addition to that, we also go out and procure electronic data records, environmental data records, which then search multiple different government and various agencies to try to find out what additional potential sources of contamination could be out there. And then finally, so we compile all this data, we review it, and then we do a Google drive-by. So getting in, looking at the aerial imagery to see if there are things that are maybe not listed in either of those sources, such as agricultural lands, farms, ranches, things that maybe weren't captured or were geocoded incorrectly as part of these data sets. So this year, we had a lot of PSOCs that we identified. So over 400 different types, with some of the primary ones you can see, the top 20 or so, they're listed on the left. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through some of the main ones that we see, and these are consistent year over year, right? So we see a lot of we see private water wells consistently, spread throughout the state of Texas. So we'll talk a little bit about those and what the potential sources are, and I'll just run you through some of the more common, the common ones that we see. So again, step one. So again, first one, water wells. As Mason mentioned earlier, this is a direct source to the aquifer. So if they've been abandoned, if they've been improperly plugged, if they've just been left or they're not being properly maintained, this can be, like he said, a straw that can allow contaminants to go from the ground surface during a rain event straight into your aquifer. It's a source for potentially animal waste, ponding, fertilizers, pesticides, anything that you'll have around these different water wells. The next, another common one that we see are auto repair facilities. So these are going to be anything from tire sales, place you get your oil changed, if you need to get your car maintenanced, all of those different activities source a lot of different potential contaminants that could be getting into your groundwater. So things you're going to want to watch out for are facilities that have waste oils, do oil changes, hydraulic fluids, antifreeze, grease, or other types of lubricants. And then the activities that they do that we're going to need to look out for are going to be, when they're doing these things, if there are spills or leaks, maintenance, as they're doing maintenance on their facilities, if they're taking apart a car, repairing cars, those are the kind of activities that have the potential to spill these potential contaminants. Next up, a very, very common one, petroleum storage tanks, particularly underground storage tanks. Almost every major intersection here in Texas has a gas station on it, usually one of the top four, Exxon, Shell, Chevron, and then Valero, or perhaps Sunoco. So again, these underground storage tanks, there was a big push to remove them, and so now all of the new ones that are coming in, they're double lined, they're a lot safer. However, it is a source that could very well be getting into your groundwater. So, it's just something that we want to be aware of to make sure that we know that they're there, and that if it is a risk, a high risk, that we maybe look at developing some sort of monitoring plan or other best practice. This was a big one for this year, boat storage and boat ramps. Canyon Lake is quite the recreational area. So a lot of these activities, and again, so you're going to see some of the similar things that you're going to have with motor vehicles here in boat storage, but some additional potential sources or pathways because of the nature of the boats being on the lakes during these events. So again, what are we looking at? We're looking at fuel, potentially sewage. Some of these boats have onboard facilities. Cleaning supplies, batteries, paints, metals, are all potential contaminants that can be present with boating activities. So again, some of the main ones are going to be fueling. So a lot of these boats and marinas will have areas where you pull your boat up without even getting out of the water, and you fuel your boat there. So that's definitely a potential source of contamination, particularly for source water. This one is pretty common all around the state, on-site sewage facilities or septic tanks. Potential contaminants are going to be coliform and nitrate. Activities are going to be mostly, if they're not being properly maintained. A lot of times what you'll see is out of sight, out of mind. People don't realize that they need to be inspected regularly. They need to be cleaned regularly. If you're not maintaining them, then they have the potential to overflow or to seep or to leak and cause, potentially get into the groundwater. So that was just kind of a quick highlight on some of the main PSOCs that we saw this year, as well as year over year. Once we've done that, once we've reviewed all of our documentation, once we've gone through, done our Google drive-by, looked at all the aerial imagery, we will then hold what we call a project initiation meeting. And so we like to do these collaboratively. One of the things that Mason really focuses on is getting a number of different public water systems in the area together at the same time participating in the program. And what I like about that and what the benefit is that you get to meet your neighbors, right? So if something were to go wrong, not even related to contamination, but let's say you have a water line break and you really need a valve or you really need a part, having these meetings together means that you know your neighbor and you know the guy next door and you can call him and say, hey, can I borrow a valve? Can I borrow a pump? What can you do? Can you help me out? So one of the biggest values that we see is just getting to know the systems around you. But what will I be talking about? I will be talking about a lot of the things that I'm talking about today. The difference is I will be focused on your public water system. So looking at, sort of giving you an overview of the things that we found in the field, talking about your well locations. A lot of times we'll come out there, there'll be a new well that has just been drilled or that you're planning on drilling that isn't in the system yet. So we want to make sure that we capture that and maybe find some additional sources that weren't in our data sets or, we didn't see when we were reviewing the maps. So that way we can go out and assess those potential sources. We'll also talk a little bit about the schedule and the timing for when we're going to be out there for step 3. And then what the expectations are for closing everything out. So step 3, once we have that meeting, we will be going out to do field verification and investigations. And so this is really boots on the ground. We have a team that goes out there looking to confirm whether or not what we received from the EDRs and TCQ is correct and it's been located correctly. We'll verify the PWS well locations, so we'll have GPS equipment for that. And then also, as we're out there, we'll be talking with your operators about contingency planning, in the event of, contamination or risk of contamination or other issue. As I mentioned before, we use electronic verification, so we'll be out there with our tablets. We use the Esri suite of programs, so Esri Collector and Survey 123, combined with a GPS unit, so we can get down super accurately knowing exactly where your wells are and where these facilities are. And that gets reported back in real time, where our internal technical team, Rania, who is here with me today, will be reviewing it and making sure that all of the quality control is maintained. Okay, while our field crews are out there, they will also hang for you one of these lovely drinking water protection signs. We make sure that we get at least one of them at each well site or intake, as the case may be. And then if you only have, and everybody gets a minimum of 2. So if you only have one well, we'll go ahead and hang it on the fence for you and then provide a backup because they are very desirable. People like them. Sometimes they have a tendency to walk off. So if that does happen, obviously you can reach out to Mason, see if he can get you with another one. Hopefully you'll still have your backup on hand. Or you can actually also go to the TCQ website and there'll be a template for ordering and printing off copies of your own if you would like more than one. So once we've done all that, we've confirmed, verified all of the PSOCs in the field. We've confirmed the well locations. We then come back in-house and start developing the report. So a lot of different sections in the report, and I'm going to go ahead and go over each one of these in detail. Basically an introduction, followed by the results of the historic research and the field inventory, best management practices, which I'm going to get into more detail later, the contingency planning portion, and then our summary and recommendations. So what does each of those sections look like? Section 1, again, so purpose and scope. So really, there's going to be some of the information that Mason presented here, talking about the background of the program. It's also going to contain specific information for your PWS, right? So what do your wells look like? Are they active? Are they inactive? What is it that you have on hand so that it's all collected in one location at the time of the report? Section 2, so this is going to be the summary of everything that we found both during our review of the desktop data, so that TCQ database and the EDRs, as well as the confirmation and potentially some additional sources that we found during our field investigation portion. So this will really kind of go over what we found and what the potential risks are for each of those potential sources of contamination. Section 3 is the section on best management practices. So you've got this potential source. There's a risk there to your ability to continue to provide clean drinking water to your end users, to your community. What are you going to do about it? right? So this section breaks down the different best management practices that you can use based on the potential sources of contamination that we found to help protect your source water. So there will be some high-level recommended best management practices. We'll have descriptions on exactly what that is. There's some hyperlinks to some additional resources from EPA and TCEQ, as well as some information on where you may be able to get funding to help you with these. So now I just kind of wanted to go through some of the best management practices. We have typical PSOCs that we find in the field. We have some standard best management practices that we apply to those, and that really can apply to a lot of the things that you're going to find that present a risk. And again, the first one is going to be community outreach, community and business outreach. Communication and education of the public and those, in charge of those potential sources is really going to be your best line of defense. It's also low-hanging fruit. It's very easy to go out and just talk to people and to educate people versus trying to implement some sort of major capital program to, get these contaminants out of your well. Educating up front, is really going to be something that should form the basis of all of your protection programs. Over on the left, one of the things that we have found to be helpful is community hotlines. If you can get your community to participate in those, it's just extra sets of eyes for you out there in the field, making sure that people aren't behaving in ways that put the system at risk. Good housekeeping is another one. So just maintaining, especially for some of these businesses, such as the auto parts store, making sure that if you spill, you clean it up immediately. That you're keeping your areas dry, you're storing your chemicals correctly, that your employees are trained on what to do. These are all things, just basic housekeeping that can help prevent those potential contaminants from getting into the rainwater, washing away, and either getting into your groundwater wells or potentially to your surface water source. We also will provide relevant links to EPA industrial fact sheets. Right now, I think there's a list of about just under 30 of them available online. So what we'll do is, we've gone through them, we're very familiar with them, and identify the ones that are applicable to the potential sources that you have and provide those links for you. Specifically starting to get into some of the more detailed best management practices. There are a number of different owner-operator education programs that are available, and in particular, small business programs, because when you are, a single, maybe a family-owned business or independent automotive business, it can be hard to find best management practices that are right-sized and fit, their available resources. And so there are specific resources for small businesses, as well as, additional, sort of just environmental guides that we can provide you with the links to. Again, on the left-hand side, getting back to that communication piece, oil and gas operators. There's a lot of wells, there's a lot of pipelines, and if you are in communication with them and you have educated them about the fact that they are in a source water protection area or a public drinking water area, then that just makes them more aware. And if you have communicated with them and built that relationship with them, then they know what to do should an emergency happen. They know that, if they have a spill or if they have a leak, they know who to call. They know who to reach out to. So that way you are getting alerts, straight from the source right when it happens versus having to hear about it potentially later in the news or on Twitter, or your preferred social media platform or media platform. So just two more here. Septic tanks, again, it's all about education. So making sure that those who have them have the resources and are aware of the steps that they need to take. Again, a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. So, just some educational materials that you can hand out, some brochures similar to the one we have here, and we can send those links to you. There is also a website, so you can actually get assistance with this, which I've got it down here in the bottom. So if you want to go ahead and take a photo of it, each OSSF has an agent who is responsible for sort of keeping track and maintaining that. And so going to this website can help you identify, what do you have in your area, and whether or not, historically they've been compliant or been good at maintaining their system, or if there have been issues in the past. And then finally, land management. Fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, these are all things that, get applied for various uses, either for farm or agriculture. Golf courses are a big one. And so really, just making sure that people are educated on how much they need to use. A lot of times people will over-fertilize or over-pesticide. But really, it's about knowing the right timing, knowing how much you need to be, effective and avoid excess. So that way it can, you don't have to worry about it leaching into your groundwater. The next one is contingency planning. So this is going to kind of dovetail with your EPP, but is focused beyond, sort of maintaining power. It's really more focused on what to do in the event that you have potential contamination, right? Or you have a contamination or some sort of spill. So it's looking at your contacts. It's looking how to notify the water users or the end users, the customers. What are those response procedures, whether it be a spill response or something else, how you want to report it, and then any alternative water supply sources, right? So do you have an interconnect with a neighboring facility? Maybe during that initiation meeting, you made some good contacts, and you can be looking to get that interconnect in place to help mitigate your risk. And then at the end, again, just a summary of the recommendations. So it'll be a high-level summary of the potential sources of contamination, along with best management practices that you can implement to reduce the risk. We also, the Source Water program also has a website. So for more information, you can also go here. It's kind of an online portal to go and seek all that information out. So that's what's contained in the report. Again, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of really good stuff that's going to be specific to your public water supply system, and the contaminants that we find. Once we've got that compiled and reviewed, we will come back. We will meet with you again for our closeout meeting. And during that meeting, we will basically kind of walk you through that report. We're going to give you a hard copy of it, as well as some really great wall maps. These are my favorites because, as Mason said, if you stick it on the shelf and you never look at it again, it's not going to do you any good. So put that, get that binder into your operator's hands, get that map up on the wall, and then as new businesses come in, as they build new gas stations, as you get a dry cleaner, get a veterinarian clinic, you can mark those on the maps. You can reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, you're in a source water area. Have you had a chance to look at these potential, these educational materials? So again, a lot of good information. In addition to the hard copy, we will also provide you with a thumb drive that has an electronic copy of it. So that way, if you spill your coffee on it, you'll still have that electronic copy. And again, if you ever lose it, of course, you can always just reach out to myself or Mason, and we can get you another version of it. And that is all that I had today. That is the program in a nutshell. Are there any questions for myself or Mason?
I've been told that my water recharge zone is 2 miles away.
Oh.
I'm on the Edwards Aquifer, so
Yeah.
would there be any point in me doing this study? I mean, if you're studying my land, I've told that there's very little recharge on my land, but all my water comes from about 2 miles away.
So even though your recharge zone is more than 2 miles away, because typically we're kind of focused on the area in the immediate vicinity of the wellhead, there still is a possibility that contaminants could get into your aquifer through other sources. So let's say you have an improperly drilled well. Again, that's a conduit that will take straight from the surface to your aquifer and potentially other aquifers in between. So it again, you probably have additional risks that you may want to consider, but there's still benefit to getting this assessment done, I think, and getting those best management practices, and just starting to educate yourselves and the community on what's out there and how to prevent.
Hi, I was just wondering if the source of drinking water is like a private well, at someone's property. Are there any requirements for testing, or how is that monitored if it is not a public water system?
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and turn that one over to Mason. We're focused mostly on source water protection.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, so In a nutshell, on a case like that, yeah, it is a private well, but if it has become abandoned, then yes, the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration can make them either plug it or fix it, okay? But you, as a water system, you don't have jurisdiction out in the country, but if you're in the city, then you do have, a lot of cities have ordinances that prohibit abandoned water wells. The main reason why we want to know where operational water wells are is so that in the future, if they become abandoned, okay? That's the main thing right there. Now, if you know that they, also as a water system, if you have a customer service inspection agreement, which you should all have a CSI thing, if you suspect that there could be a cross connection with that well, then you have the ability to go on property and work with them on that too. So that falls under your CSI. So the country water systems have a little less protection as far as that goes, as more as your cities do have ordinances against certain types of wells in the town.
And then as far as testing, you had asked about testing. So
Yeah.
are they?
They're not required to test that well there. That's, if it's a private well, they're not required to test it, yeah.
So you mentioned both kind of a historical review of information and then what sounds like more, also a field investigation. Is there a balance between which one is performed more than the other one? There's a lot of water wells that were drilled in the 40s or 50s. I don't know that people would even know what they're walking past if they walked past them. So how do you determine where an abandoned water well is if it's not on a state log or some database right now?
So that is a good question. So we do both the desktop studies. So we look at all of those sources for every public water system, and then we also do the field investigations. Frequently, we will run into situations where we have a PSOC that is identified in the data, but we are unable to locate it in the field, either because it just can't be found, or potentially it's on an area of private property where we're not going to be entering, or maybe the site is overgrown. And so for those, what we do is we leave that in the system. It is, you'll get a database of all of the verifications that we've done. So it will say that we were not able to field verify that particular potential source, but we will leave that on there just so that you're aware. So let's say if you are testing your groundwater and you start to see changes in the quality, you'll know that this could be maybe where that could be coming from. And so as you investigate further, you would be able to look into that. Does that answer? Oh.
And that makes the ground truth and so much more important, because we really only know where maybe less than half the water wells actually are. So if a well was drilled and it wasn't registered, then we have no what. So the desktop study does not help you. So that's why the ground truth is so important, and also the steering committees. If you have a group of people that grew up in the area, they're going to know where everybody's water well is located for the most part, and so and it may not be registered. So that's very important. So ground truthing is the key. That's the most important part of the program, is going out there and actually looking at it. You'd be surprised how many times Wendy and myself, and I failed to mention Sean Abels, another gentleman in the audience that does source water. When you have that kickoff meeting, oh, there's nothing out here. There's nothing out here. And then we go out there and there's a water well, and you hear the operator say, I had no idea that was here. And so that's why it's so important to get out there and do it.
So if I don't want to go through a whole program with you, but I know of neighbors and I know they have wells that are not on these maps that you're talking about because I've looked online, how would I tell you that there's a well there?
So that's not this project. That's more of the Water Development Board, okay? They're the ones that identify those wells like that. We're just dealing with the capture zone for your water system, okay? Those that fall within your capture zone is the one we're trying to identify. And you're talking about, if you're not participating in the program, I mean, you need to participate in the program, and then we'll help you identify those. But they're not going to make your neighbor get rid of his well if they're using it. That's not the way that works.
No, I'm not telling to get rid of his well.
Yeah. You're just wanting to help us.
You said you wanted to know where wells were. And
Okay, so that's with the Texas Water Development Board. Yes, that's with them. So they're the ones that, we do public water supply wells, and then we'll identify potential sources. But if you're just wanting to identify wells and let someone knows about it, that's the Texas Water Development Board, and they have a viewer of all those private wells across the state. They're constantly trying to update it, and that's where I was saying they know where less than half of those are probably. Yeah. I think hopefully I answered your question. Okay.
thank you for coming, and be sure and take your stuff with you, and the next session will start at 1.
Hey, y'all be sure and try to catch that generator workshop. Thank you.